And technology has always played a part, but I know for you, it has always been one thing that has never wavered. It's always been about the Mavericks and the student athletes and the coaches.
It's been the best. Telling the story of the Mavericks over the course of my time here has been the best thing ever, and I've been so fortunate to do it, meet folks like yourself and other people. It's been a wonderful career, and have absolutely loved our time here in Mankato.
From BLC Studios in Mankato, Minnesota, this is the Maverick Hockey Live Podcast, presented by Dunkin. With your host, Shane Frederick.
This is the Maverick Hockey Live Podcast, presented by Dunkin. I'm Shane Frederick, I'm the host, and today we have a very special guest, Mr. Paul Allan from the Athletic Communications Department. I don't know what your official title is at this point, but it doesn't matter anymore because in about 3 days, you'll be retired.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Thanks, Freddie. Thanks for having me on.
Paul Allan, PA, as he is well known in Mankato, or as the real PA. He's retiring after 37 years in athletic communications at Minnesota State University, Mankato, and very much associated with the community in Mankato, Minnesota State athletics, Minnesota State University as a whole, and but really a very strong presence in the hockey community, both associated with Minnesota State Mavericks, every conference the Mavericks have been in, and obviously you've been, you could probably chronicle a large chunk of MSU hockey history. It's got to be a whirlwind couple days since the announcement of your retirement.
It has been, and I've been overwhelmed by sort of the response. In a lot of respects, I think probably more than anything because my time here is a little bit unusual. I think for someone in almost any profession, really, but in our profession, Freddie, as you know, to be at one place as long as I have. So I've been lucky to develop some relationships with some special people along the way, and it's been really cool. Not the least of which is a lot of student athletes have reached out and checked in. So it's been pretty cool. Really has. Yep.
Any hockey players of note, since this is kind of a hockey podcast? You've been around a lot of hockey guys for a long time.
And started traveling with the team when we went Division I. Up to that point, we didn't. So you really get to know the student athletes when you travel with them. A lot of times when they see you working, it's a long press row, and but if you go on the road, it's a little bit different. So, I got a great text from Connor Mackey, which was really cool. Joe Schiller and I keep in touch a little bit. A guy named Pat Moose Martin, who was one of the veteran guys 30 years ago. Checked in. So it's been, and from a lot of the other sports too, because I don't, as you know, I don't work just with men's hockey, but it's been nice to those relationships. And also, I it's not just the guys. There's been some gals too that have checked in, and winning bonds a lot of people. We've had a lot of success in the last 37 years at MSU with a lot of our sports, Freddie, and of course, it's all about the student athletes. And can you imagine working in a college setting for as long as I have, being around young people all the time? That's been a lot of fun.
That'll keep you youthful.
Yeah. You think so? Yeah.
I mean, for you and I covering the Mavericks for the Free Press for 20 years, and I think about Mike Sullivan, who's now in his 22nd year, I think, covering the Mavericks as the radio play-by-play guy. I go back to 2000 when I started covering the team and going on the road, and you really helping make my job easier, just with, helping develop relationships, meeting people, all the work that you've done on Press Row, just post-game type things, especially on the road. And as you know, you and I have had some interesting experiences, both in Mankato, but on the road as well, because the road experience is certainly, you're the outsider a little bit. The press box is full of the partisans. I think about, Ralph Engelstedt Arena. And so, it's you, me, Sully, and, just trying to do our thing post-game or pre-game for Sully. And, just you end up developing a lot of bonds over time, and I think for you and I, we developed a pretty good friendship, and growing up in learning about journalism, there was always kind of this, hey, the newspaper guy and the PR guy, they're never going to get along because they have different philosophies and different outcomes that they're looking for. But really, it's kind of this symbiotic relationship, isn't it? You kind of need each other, and I think you and I kind of developed that, and also just you throw in the love for hockey, which I know you have, and we can talk about that in a second. It's got to be a lot of fun, not just you and me, but just you working with different journalists and different radio people and all the different people that are associated in, kind of the behind the curtain of college hockey and college athletics.
Yeah, a couple things relative to what you just said, Freddie. Number one, I've seen you function. I know you as a person. I'm not sure much help you needed from me in getting to know people, right? It comes pretty natural to a guy like you, and has served you well over the years in your job. And I think, when I started down this career path, I learned from a great guy at Northern Arizona named Wiley Smith. And we try to do things like Wiley did at Northern Arizona. It's never changed. And running the office and going about your business and what the mission of a person in my position should be doing, how you go about the business. Our job is to help the media in a lot of ways, and make their jobs as easy as possible. Because if you do that, then your institution and the teams you're working with, the student athletes, the coaches, staff, they're going to benefit from that, and that's your job. That's what you should be doing. So I think I mentioned starting at Northern Arizona, some of the attributes that I think I have, I think we're similar personality-wise, Shane, and we're not exactly the same, but I enjoy being around people, public relations people, not always, but for the most part, there's an external component to what we do, and always have an understanding that you're representing your athletic department in your role with your job was one of the things that was instilled in me with Wiley all along. And there's some nuts and bolts about the job and how you go about doing that. But for the most part, and the other thing was I enjoyed, you mentioned the traveling part and the student athletes, but being in the rinks, football press boxes, baseball, softball press boxes around the country, the opportunity to travel. That was one of the, when I started, I realized, you can travel. I've seen the country,
Right.
What a great way to see the country, in working in sports and traveling with people and being feeling like you're part of a team in some respects, but that part of it there's some great people, that I've gotten to know very rarely, I should say, if I looked at a relationship with the journalists. And the technology, we've talked about the technology, how it's changed things, but we relied, still today, of course, but back then, when I first started and for the first half of my career, basically, you were relying on journalists to get the word out about Maverick athletics.
Right.
So, but also having an understanding that the newspaper, the radio and TV guys, gals, they're not working for us. They're not working for us. Mm-hmm. So they're the ones who were telling the story. We were, in our job, trying to get them to tell stories about us.
Right.
And it's competitive. You see what other schools do, and you learn a lot by watching how other people go about their business from a public relations standpoint. And so you learn along the way on how to do that stuff. But first and foremost, it's the relationship business, and appreciated about how you went about your business. You're an added value guy with everything that you did in working, not just with the Free Press, but we got to know each other a little bit when you were with Let's Play Hockey, and so we go back even further than your time at the Free Press and all the stuff you were doing with Puck Cato and following our team around the country. Of course, you did a lot more than hockey too.
Yep.
A lot of people forget that as well, because you had your specialty stuff that you did. I remember we used to have the Grand Prix bicycle event in Mankato every summer, and that was your gig.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was yeah, it's been fun.
So you mentioned Northern Arizona, but you're a Canadian guy, born and raised in Canada, and obviously love for hockey. I know that's in the blood there, and certainly in the blood in the Allan family, as I've come to learn over time. But to fall into, to make your way to Mankato and to really be part of the hockey community and the MSU hockey community and really watch it grow from that point. You came in after they won the national title a few years later, the Division II national title in 1980. But you were around Don Brose, Troy Judding, Mike Hastings, and watching the program grow from Division II, Division III to Division I, to kind of a fledgling Division I team to a conference power to a program that's gone to 2 Frozen Fours in a row now. What's that like to have kind of witnessed that much of it over your 37 years? Because it's got to be night and day to look at where they were last March compared to the first year you were here.
Yeah, extremely fortunate to end up at a school that had hockey. Mm-hmm. Looking back on it, I was at Northern Arizona. We had a Division I men's hockey program at NAU. It was there for 6 years. Okay. And they don't anymore, of course.
People forget that, I think.
Yeah, they don't anymore. But I'd actually interviewed, didn't get past the hiring process at a couple of other schools before landing at MSU, and didn't know anybody here. Knew they had a hockey program, a good hockey program. I remember Bert Borgman, who was a guy I knew a little bit, was the SID at Northern Colorado. And at that time, Northern Colorado had they're Division I now, but they were a Division II school in the North Central Conference, and they had Division I baseball. And Bert Borgman said to me, "We've got a pretty good baseball program at Mankato State as well." This was the fall of '85, and when I first started here. So, but I knew very little about Mankato and the town before I got here, and we were playing at All Seasons Arena. Program, if you think about when I started in '85, the program wasn't really all that old. It was 15 years old at that point. And we were D3 when I started. We were D3. They had done away with Division II. You mentioned the national championship in 1980 when we were D2, but the NCAA did away with the Division II league championship, and we switched to Division II and got into the NCHA, right, which was St. Scholastica, and Bemidji State was in the league, and Wisconsin schools were in that league. It was a really good Division III league. Yeah. And the whole move to Division I, I know you've told the story before. I've when people ask me about it, it's incredible how these set of circumstances led us to Division I. They kicked us out of. Basically, they said it's kind of a long story, but what happened was Dayton won a Division III football title, and Dayton was Division I in men's basketball, and the Division III people weren't happy. They felt they were a Division I school and their resource different than a Division III school. They shouldn't be competing at Division III. So the NCAA passed legislation to limit who could be Division III. You had to be D3 and everything. There was no more multi-affiliated opportunities for schools. Well, we were a D2 school playing Division III. Yeah. So the question then became, because they were going to legislate us out of, we couldn't grandfather, they weren't grandfathering anyone into Division III. So schools like us in Bemidji State were going to have to leave Division III. Well, there's no Division II, which meant either you guys go Division I, which you could do, or you're not going to have a program. So it was tenuous. Yeah. And we certainly didn't want to leave. We didn't want to drop our men's hockey program. We didn't want to drop any programs, but we certainly didn't want to lose our program. So then what? Well, we had a little bit of a cushion because the NCAA decided that they would reinstall the Division II championship, and they did that for 4 years, I think. Bemidji State, Alabama, Huntsville both won D2 national titles again. By the way, in '91, 91, we went to the Division III National Championship and lost to Stevens Point, a team from the NCHA in the national championship game in Elmira, New York, with Don Brose as our head coach. And so we had to figure it out. And at the same time, the city really needed to do something with downtown to get something going. And this combination of conversation started about, well, if we build a facility, could you guys maybe go division? When you guys were Division I, could you guys go Division I? That's sort of basically got the ball rolling, and they passed the 0.5% sales tax to build the Civic Center, and we finally had a home to play. If we were going to go Division I, that question got answered. We had a place, and then we had to work our way. It took us about 3 years after announcing that we were going to go Division I. We had a little hiccup initially, but we got that figured out. And lo and behold, by 95, 96, we were in the Civic Center and we were Division I. And got into the WCHA, and Don Brose retired. We hired Troy. We go to the NCAA tournament in 02-03.
Yeah, this is the 20th anniversary of that season.
02-03, an unbelievable year with a couple All-Americans who were scoring between them about 4 points a game, between Shane Joseph and Grant Stevenson. Just an unbelievable year. At one point, we had a 17-game unbeaten streak, which was the school record up until last year for our longest unbeaten streak here at the school. And then we had some success, a little bit of success. And eventually we had the league change from the WCHA, with those teams leaving to start up the NCHC. And then Mike Hastings came along, and we've had this unbelievable run of success here. I don't know if people know how hard it is to have the level of success consistently we've had in the last decade plus over Mike's time here, but it's incredible. You just can't. It's a very difficult thing to sustain. Yeah. And Mike has a wonderful way of, and his staff with Todd Connaught, and who's been here. He predates Mike's time here. Darren Blue, of course, and Paul Kirtland now. Eric Means. Eric wasn't here when he was the women's coach, I think, when Mike started. But all along the way, we're producing and developing players that can compete at the next level. They're graduating. We've got tremendous support. Our building's full. But we all know, you've been around long enough to know it hasn't always been that way. And it takes a lot of work, and I think everybody would agree, it takes a lot of work by a lot of hard people to get where we are now. Mm-hmm. And without the support of people in the community, it takes a lot of things for things to fall in place. And we hit a home run on the guy we hired to run the program, I think, and really enjoying the success that we're having right now. And I'm looking forward to following along as we continue on.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, as we record this is the week after the sweep at Bowling Green. The week before that, the Mavericks got swept at home by Ferris State. And I think the shock to everybody kind of goes to your point about, how hard it is to win, because the expectation becomes that they don't lose at home and that they beat teams like Ferris State, and it is difficult. And as a journalist, talking to Mike, back when I was covering the beat daily, the coaches say talk about the difficulty and talk to win, and the difficulty to score goals, and the difficulty to sustain that kind of consistency. And it sounds like cliches, and as a reporter, you can get a little jaded and go, yeah. But you realize how difficult it is when you see, when there is a hiccup, or when you see a program graduate the great players that they've graduated from this run that they've been on. But then they turn around and bounce back, and they sweep at Bowling Green. No easy place to win, and you go, oh, okay, they figured some things out. So as a journalist, it's actually kind of fun to watch. I'm sure as just an observer, as an SID, you're always rooting for them to win, but to watch a team come back, to rebound after a tough loss, after some adversity, that ends up being, a good story for a reporter, but as a person who follows it, you get to feel good about or who works closely with a team, has to feel good about, to be able to see them, a team be able to do that, whether it's coming back from a tough season or a tough night or a tough weekend.
Every year is different, as you know. In the college setting, your kids graduate and move on after their eligibility is up, or they've signed early to sign a pro contract. They leave early to sign a pro contract, and so every year is different. We lost the Hobie Baker winner.
Yeah, we
lost our leading scorer, who Nathan Smith's last year was 1 for the 8. We hadn't had a guy score like him since. It was Shane Joseph and Grant Stevenson in 02-03. And he played in the NHL last year, right from playing for us to playing in the NHL. So we lost, and Julian Napravnik, I saw he got his first goal last week with Hershey in the American Hockey League. Along with the other guys, we lost our captain and 2 captains, and Jack McNeely and Wyatt Ahmet. So those are pretty, in any program, those would be difficult losses, and you just can't expect those guys to leave and not be affected by it. Yeah. So the expectation here is that the guys are coming back, will be a year older, have a year of experience. We've got some new guys coming in, and the younger guys, the underclassmen, they get a year older. But it's not as easy as just slotting your number 2 or number 3 center, all of a sudden becoming your number 1 center. The guys take on different roles. The leadership dynamic changes, all that stuff, and our coaches do a great job of managing that. That being said, the body of work with this coaching staff and with this program here is, we're 11 years into it with Mike.
Yep.
And there's this critical mass I think we've achieved. We had 38 wins last year, 38 wins. That's incredible. Teams just don't have 38 wins every year. They don't. But we've never had fewer than 21 wins in a season under Mike during his time here. And for sure, when we got swept at home by Ferris State, something that hadn't happened in 7 years. It's like we went through this with football a little last year. We was same type of deal. We're under Todd Hoffner. We had this level of success where we played for 2 national championships in the last 5 years under him. 12 wins in a year, 13 wins in a year, 14 wins in a year for a football program. For the last 10 years, we went 6-5 last year. We went 6-5, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, what happened? Well, Shane Zylstra, who's playing in the NFL, was on that team. He graduated. I mean, it's pretty similar. And another guy, Evan Heim, who was the last cut by the Lions a year ago and then played in the XFL, was an All-American offensive lineman for us. He left. But then we had a bounce back year this year. Yep. Yeah, we went back to the NCAA tournament, won the first round game, got to the second round to a team that, by the way, is playing for the national championship down in McKinney, Texas. So, hockey's a little bit tricky because of the way the postseason tournament works with the pairwise, and I don't know. Have you checked where we are now? Are we in the
last I saw was 20th?
20th, okay.
I don't know if that changed after the last couple of days.
Yeah, so we have to be in the top 16, and pending how they go with conference championships, it could be less than that. We maybe have to be in the top 14, maybe. So pairwise, based on how our schedule works for the rest of the year, it might be a challenge for us to get in the top 16, which means you'd have to win your conference tournament, which is certainly doable with this group of guys and the way we play. We're leading the league, and right now we played 2 fewer games than most of the teams in the league. I think there's this mentality that this group of the program has was just keep doing what we're doing and know what we do, and it'll work out. And it usually does. I think the series versus Ferris State, we were up 2-0 in the second game, and we very rarely give up leads.
Yep.
And it happened. We ended up giving up the lead at our place. So you knew that, the coaches weren't happy, but I guarantee our players weren't happy, And I think, having talked with Mike and how he functions and how our coaching staff goes about their business, that just trust the process. We've got a pretty good record doing what we're doing here, so let's just get back to the grindstone. And there's an identity that our program has, I think, which is we very rarely stray from. We don't panic. Just keep doing what we're doing, and we're going to be fine. And it's sort of where we are right now. Now it's like we got those 2 wins on the road at a really difficult place to do that in Bowling Green. It's like, well, what did you expect? You know what I mean?
Right.
What did you expect? I think a lot of people felt that everything will be fine. I don't sense, with Mike, having, seen Mike and the guys was like, not that we'll be fine, but let's clean it up and let's figure out what the deal is and away we go. And I think it's what happened against Bowling Green.
A couple things I want to ask you about, but like over time here. I mean, obviously there was great moments. You mentioned the 2003 NCAA tournament, obviously the last 2 Frozen Fours, but there have to be some other little moments in your time and maybe even over the last 22 years when you and I have both been around. There's some things that you think about much, just some fun things, on the ice, off the ice, in the press box. There's a few that come to mind, but is there anything in my head that we were both around, but does anything really stand out that you think about, just kind of some fun stories?
You mentioned former players that checked in. I got a video message from Chris Clark.
Oh.
And that game against Denver, at our place, we were down 7-1, 6-1.
Yeah, I think,
7-1. I think
7-1.
we ended winning 8-7.
Yeah.
I think. A great comeback, and Chris Clark, was the winning goaltender. He was our 3rd goaltender that night. And we had used Jason Jensen and John Volpe, and Clarkie thought he was redshirting, that he hadn't played. And he stopped.
I think it was actually Kyle Nixon.
Was it Kyle Nixon?
John Volpe and Kyle Nixon.
Kyle Nixon, okay.
I think Jason
That's right.
Jensen didn't come back after 2003.
That's right. You're right. You would know. You would know who's Kyle Nixon, and Clarkie stopped all 13 shots when he came in, which is. And he ended up being the winning goalie.
Against the team that went on to win the national championship.
Won the national championship. There was a couple weird things that happened during the game. Their best defenseman got hurt, I think, and then
I think a 5-minute or maybe
got
5-minute
kicked
major.
out of the game, 5-minute major, and another guy got hurt.
Their coach wasn't there. George Gwozdecki was at a funeral.
Wasn't there. Yeah.
And
Steve. What was his name? Who's the name of the assistant coach at Minnesota now?
Steve Miller.
Steve Miller was. I think was the coach for that night, the interim coach. So that was pretty cool.
Some people forget that night before, it was a tie game in which David Backus, I believe, scored the tying goal with 2 seconds left in regulation, I think.
It was a great weekend. We had some good games against Denver. I remember Eric Bacher, the SID at the time at Denver, was talking about Ryan Carter. Ryan Carter had 2 hat tricks during his career. Both came against Denver.
Yeah, wow.
In 2 different seasons, his freshman year and his sophomore year. And he left after his sophomore year to sign with Anaheim and ended up winning the Stanley Cup. I tell a story about, I was going to tell this story yesterday. My wife, Lori, and some of the stuff... I didn't want to go on too much yesterday about some stuff, but one of the stories I want to mention is a hockey-related story with the Stanley Cup. And I've told you this story before, I'm sure. Karts was nice enough to bring the Stanley Cup to Mankato after he won it with Anaheim. And I had to leave later on in the day, and I had a flight out to California for a convention. But I was involved with a lot of stuff that was going on during Kart's visit. We flew in to the airport. We had some stuff out at the airport, and I had my 3 sons with me, Seth, Sean, and Jack. And Kart's we had, 7 or 8 places that we wanted to visit with the Stanley Cup. It was here. We was going to end up at Junkers for a reception as the last stop. And we had a limo van, a big limo van with carts, and some of the key guys, Juts and Darren and some other people were in the limo. And I had the boys in my car, and I was following them along. getting to the place before they were supposed to be and get things ready for they could be there. We had a reception in downtown Mankato where people could have their picture taken with Ryan and the cup and take pictures of the cup and Ryan and stuff. So it was really cool. There was about 750 people downtown for that, if you recall. And I had to get going because my flight was leaving in the afternoon. I had to drive up to the cities and get to the airport. So we're downtown Mankato, and I'm getting ready to go. And Juts says to me, I said, Juts, your last stop is you're going to one more place, and then you're going to Junkers. I said, they're expecting you in about 30 minutes at Junkers, so don't forget you got to get out there. So you've only got like 15 minutes at this next stop, and then you got to go. And he goes, well, where are you going? And I got to go. He goes, where are you going? I said, I got a flight to catch. I got to get the boys home and get up to the airport to Minneapolis, St. Paul. And he goes, no, you're not. I'm not going. And I go, I am. I got to go. And he goes, get on the limo right now. And I go, I can't. I got to go. And my boys are there, and they were younger at the time. Jack was probably only about 4 or 5. And I go, I got the guys, and I say, I can't. And he goes, PA, it's the effing Stanley Cup. So I go, okay. So I look around, I look at Seth, and as crazy as this sounds, I go, Seth said, I'll be right back. Where are you going? I'm going to Junkers, but I'll be back in about half an hour or so. I said, take care of your brothers. So I hop on the limo. I hop in the limo with Karts and Juts and the rest of those guys. And there's the Stanley Cup, and you know you're not supposed to touch the cup unless you win it. You're not deserving, right? So I didn't. I was like sitting beside it, looking at it, and my phone rings, and it's Lori. And Lori goes, hey. I go, hey, Bucky, how's it going? She goes, good. She goes, where are you? And I go, I'm sitting beside the Stanley Cup. And she goes, okay, where are the boys? And I go, they're downtown. I go, they're fine. I said, I'm going to Junkers, and I'll go right down. I said, I need a ride from Junkers to downtown so I can get them. So I think I said to, I can't remember who it was, but I said, hey, watch the boys are down. It wasn't like I left them of their own devices, and we didn't want them separated. So, that's another hockey-related story. And so grateful that Juts made me get on that limo, and the boys were fine. I got back down there, and they were waiting for me, and it was all cool. They were there. My first year here, we went to the Division III Final Four in Bemidji. And that was a unbelievable experience. I had never eaten beer battered walleye before, but they had it at the national championship banquet. That was a fun time, and that was a great group of guys. Troy was on that team. Troy was a senior on that team. His younger brother Todd was on that team. Eric Evans was the captain. And that was a really good group of guys. The seniors were about my age. So, I got to know those guys really well and keep in touch with some of them. Last year's, and you mentioned the 2 trips to the Frozen Pour. In Pittsburgh, my son, Sean, was the SID for Minnesota Duluth at that time, and UMD was there. Yeah. Really cool to share that with Sean. Mm-hmm. Really fortunate. The outdoor game at Blakeslee last year.
Oh, yeah.
Shane?
Of course.
Getting kind of emotional as we go down memory lane here, but one of the really great things about hockey in Mankato is the growth that we've seen occur during our time here, and we've played I think we played a pretty big role in how things have turned out hockey-wise. Really proud of East and West and their appearances, both boys and girls, in the state tournament. We've got more kids playing hockey here than we've ever had in the community. We've had kids play Division I hockey, Corey Lieberman, Kyle Loft. kids playing junior hockey. We had all these kids playing junior hockey now.
Yeah.
Junior A hockey
Right.
in the North American Hockey League, and kids that have played in the USHL. I remember talking to one of our women's hockey players' parents, a guy named Dave Paddington, who's from Thunder Bay. His daughter Alexis is on our women's hockey team. She's a really good player. She's an all-rookie, all-WCHA rookie team player last year in the WCHA. We were talking about stuff. He called me to talk about some stuff, and or maybe it was an email, I think now, where we're talking about it. It was just after the game at Blakesley, Hockey Day Minnesota game, and I said, we're a hockey community now, and he goes, I think you have been for a while, actually. That's coming from a guy from Thunder Bay.
Yeah.
You know, so you've played a role in that, Shane, with all the stuff that you were doing with Puck Cato and the coverage with the Mavericks. But we've been, it's that part of it is about us becoming a hockey community is wonderful. I think, I've said before, we're closer to Iowa than we are to Hibbing or War Road or Roseau, down here. So it's taken us a while to get there, but it's fun to see people wearing Maverick hockey gear around town, jerseys and stuff. Little kids wearing our stuff and sporting our logo. And one of the reasons I think that we have had that type of thing is the growth in the youth hockey in Mankato, and that's been fun too.
Yeah, and the atmosphere downtown, what they've built up, as you and I have talked about, winning cures everything. But when you see the run that Hastie's teams have been on, and you combine that with good high school programs and a great atmosphere downtown with a band and a student section that gobbles up all the available tickets. An hour after you start doling them out on a Wednesday afternoon or Wednesday morning or whenever you do it on campus, and just that there's an excitement there. I remember some lean years, when you just wondered, are people going to come and watch? Because it's a good product and it's a good thing to watch. I mean, there's good teams coming to town, and I think Mike Hastings has said this before. You've said it before. I've said it a number of times. But when the script flipped and it didn't matter who was in town, that it didn't matter that it was the Gophers or North Dakota, that a game against Alabama Huntsville late in the season is going to draw 5,000 people. If you would have told me that in 2005, I would have laughed you out of the room. You realize people are coming to see this team. People are latching onto this team, and that's a tribute to a lot of people in town. You being certainly one of them, and that just that there's passion there that this can be a hockey community. And it doesn't have to be just a hockey community. That's not a fight against the basketball folks or the football folks or the baseball folks. It's just there's an element there that's really strong, and I think it's been cool to see as it's grown in the last in my time in Mankato, which is 22 years.
Plenty of room for everybody, I think, in a lot of respects. And I, in Boston last year, Mav Nation shows up.
Yep.
I was on the bus. I certainly not deserving of walking on a red carpet, but I was stuck, and I didn't. I tried to take a left and right. I couldn't. I had to walk down that red carpet at the end, and saw how many familiar faces.
Yeah.
Nothing against their schools that did that, but there were many more people from Mankato were cheering for the Mavericks that were there than anybody else, and you can hear them in the rink. 18,000 people, and you hear our fans at the rink.
Yeah,
so a lot of people drove out to Boston from Mankato or from this part of and so I think and exposure, all that stuff, Shane, the national exposure you get from there, and we referred to the three other teams there as the Blue Bloods, and then there was us, and certainly we're still making our history but we played the national championship game last night, and we're leading Denver. Couldn't get that. We needed one more goal, and rang one off the post, I think, at one point, and Denver, they hung around, and they ended up beating us. But my sense is that we'll get another kick at the can here at some point. Not this year, then maybe next year.
And you say blue bloods, but if you especially you look at this body of work over the last 10, 11 years, and you realize in the history of college hockey that a decade-long run can really establish a program. A team that's gone on a 10-year run you can kind of say, like, they're a team you think of now. It's not just isn't that nice? Here's a program that's kind of worked its way in. Minnesota State's really done that. Over this time, and you look at their record against other teams in the state and the powerhouses, and and just the rivalries that have developed. And as much as critical as I was of all the conference breakup, and that people are still upset about that you look at what that's done. And when these teams do play each other, and it's great. What happened early this season, Minnesota State playing the Gophers, playing UMD, playing St. Cloud. They're going to play Bemidji in conference play this weekend. You get St. Thomas in the conference now. That's all pretty cool. I mean, that's all something that and Minnesota State's right there as competitive as anybody, and it's just made the sport stronger within the state and in the country.
You vote on the U.S. College Hockey Online.
Not anymore, but I did for 20 years.
Yeah. The national polls really don't mean anything, or publicity purposes only, and it's reached the point now where it was funny because having observed, my impression I get from those national polls, which are voted on, there's the coaches poll, which is USA Today, USA Hockey One, and then there's the other one, which has got 50 voters. Mm-hmm. It seemed like we're seeing a little bit with like Merrimack this year. If you look at that poll, Merrimack hasn't had a whole lot of success. All of a sudden, they've got 13 wins this year, and they've been making their way up the poll. The phenomenon I observe with us relative to like Merrimack and that type of thing is, there's skepticism of whether they're legit because they don't have the body of work.
Right.
So when we first started having some success, we would have to claw our way up those national polls. And then once we lost, people were pretty quick to.
Right.
Now, like North Dakota, like Minnesota, there's schools with there's certain history that are automatic at the beginning of the year. You're going to rank them in your top 10 typically.
Yep.
They've got to be good. They're always good.
Yeah.
So I'm going to rank them. Right now, it seems to me like we start off the season 6th or 7th or 8th in the poll, I think, and then
maybe 2 or 3 right away in
we
the
ended
preseason. But
we ended up 2. We got as high as 2, and then we went 1-4-1 over the 6-game stretcher recently, but we haven't dropped all that far. We're down to 16 now. We beat Bowling Green, and we didn't move anywhere up in the poll, but we stayed 16 again this week for the second consecutive week in both polls. But we're not dropping down. Like North Dakota had a run where they had I don't know how many years in a row that they were in the U.S. College Hockey Online poll for the first time ever. They're not in the top 20. And I think there's this, so I think we've reached a status. That's my impression I have, is that we've sort of reached that status in some respect. To me, it's a respect thing.
Yeah.
So the whole thing with where we are with in the community, where we are nationally right now, and people's recognition of where we are, we've been tracking the number of wins we've had over the course of Mike's time here as compared to everybody else in the country. And we've got, I think, 30 or 40 more wins than the next closest competitor, Quinnipiac, Denver, Minnesota, all those schools. And it's not just because we're in the CCHA. Our coaches do a great job of scheduling a non-conference schedule that is the most robust every year against really good teams, knowing how important that the pairwise is, but also, from a recruiting standpoint, you're going to have a chance to play the best teams. You come here and you'll get to compete, and it's all related.
I think it came out today in North Dakota. Or there was a story about North Dakota's upcoming schedule. Minnesota State's going to play North Dakota, the next 2 seasons. I don't remember where first, but up there and then back here, and so it continues. So.
Yeah.
We've been going on for a long time, and I'd love to keep going. We could probably put, this could be like a Bill Simmons podcast and go for 2.5 hours here. But I will ask you one question related to something you said earlier. You talked about being in Bemidji in 1984 and having that beer battered walleye.
Yeah.
My question, being in Bemidji, was that beer battered walleye better than or worse than the prime rib sandwich that you had in Bemidji with me a few times at the Sanford Center?
We'd always talk about the prime rib sandwich there with the little horseradish sauce on the side. Yeah. I've eaten a lot of hot dogs too, Freddie, during my time as they call that in my business, they call it the SID steak. We eat hot dogs too. Yeah, there's you get to know where to get stuff up at when we go up to Anchorage at the rink in Anchorage. It's funny because Sully would never eat like 2 hours before the game. And here's me stuffing a burrito from this little shop that they have at the rink in Anchorage, like 50 minutes for the broadcast, knowing I was doing color with Sully. I had no problem. Sully, of course, didn't want to burp on air, so he would never eat before me. Not so much. I'm really mad at us. I'm just along for the ride. So, yeah, it was great. That I missed that prime rib sandwich. It was really good.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Well, the Mavericks play Bemidji State this weekend here in Mankato. Thursday night is Dryden McKay night. They'll be hanging a banner in honor of his Hobie Baker, and the Hobie Baker trophy will be on display. And then it's a Thursday night and then a Friday night, and then a little bit of a holiday break for the Mavericks, and then it's the end of the line for one PA Paul Allan after the Bemidji series. So it'll probably be a little bit bittersweet this weekend.
Yeah. I got lots of stuff to do before Thursday. So looking forward to seeing Dryden and his family, and extremely excited for him. That's an Eric really thing I didn't even talk about Dryden, but
yeah,
we got a Hobie Baker Award winner at our place. So I think about the guys that come through here, and of course Dryden's one of the all-time best.
Yeah.
Excited for him and his family.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yep.
It's been quite a run. You've seen it all, or you've seen almost all of it. You've seen 37 years of 50 plus years of Maverick hockey and other Maverick athletics. But my heartfelt congratulations and best wishes, and of course you'll be around, and we'll see you at the rink.
Yeah, we'll see you at the rink. It's been a great ride. Thanks, Freddie.
Yeah,
appreciate
absolutely.
it.
That's Paul Allan, everybody. I'm Shane Frederick. This has been Maverick Hockey Live, presented by Dunkin. We'll see you next time.